Hi, in this video I'm going to demonstrate how to install the Samurai rubber skirt. Here it is. I'm using the black one. Now I have made another video showing the demonstration using the screws and the glue and the double-sided tape which comes with the Samurai, but I found that this double-sided tape is actually pretty useless and there are far too few screws here to keep this in place. For example, over here this was installed using the screws, and even with many screws, just a small gap between the screws and we can see that it does sag. Also, the double-sided tape is quite useless. It's got no adhesion anymore, and now I need to either re-glue this or put more screws here. Right, so in this case, I'm actually going to remove this double-sided tape, and I'm going to use a different double-sided tape over here. This is, in my opinion, a better quality double-sided tape, and its adhesion properties are stronger. One can also use silicone. You can also get automotive silicone, which will also reduce this coming off. Because this sits like that, there is quite a lot of drag, and unfortunately it is going to want to separate from the bumper, and that is why I've got these panel pins or push pins here. So in this case I can drill quite a few of the holes here just using these plastic panel pins, which in my opinion is also a bit safer than the screws. Right, so in my case I'm going to first remove the old skirt. Right, the next step is to clean it. I use a rough cloth and a rubbing alcohol. A hand sanitizer has glycol in. This is just alcohol with a little bit of water. I don't want to use a hand sanitizer with glycol because it leaves a residue. Right, so here's the underside of the bumper. You can see it's very scuffed. It's got a lot of scratches on. So the tape's going to go from the edge and then it's going to have to turn here. It's like about a 75 degrees. So in order to turn here, I will make incisions at the back of the lip, which I'll demonstrate shortly. Now it's going to go here and then it's going to have to go upwards and then flat again. And then it's straight all the way here, but you can see that it is flared a bit here on the bumper. Then it's going to go down. So I must make sure that I attach it here, otherwise it's going to flop off here. Now the bumper has got some damage from hitting pavements, etc. Then the skirt's going to go all the way around there, again turning a corner, so I'm going to have to make some incisions at the back, and I'll show you what I mean by that now. Right, so over here, this is the old skirt, and that's what I mean. In order to make that turn, I need to cut it at the back. See, there are the incisions. So by cutting it, it can make a turn without having too much of a warp. This is the old one, and I'm now going to get ready to install the new one. Now in my case, I'm not using this tape again because, as I said, this is what happens. It just comes off. It's not very good. But in the tape's defense, what you do need to do is you need to put so many screws along the way. So I'm going to be doing two things different. Firstly, I'm going to change the tape, and secondly, I'm going to put many panel pins along the way, maybe even a few screws, but I'm going to first take this tape off. I don't think this tape is that good. And I just note that even when I touch it, if it gets a little bit dirty, it's no longer sticky. It's actually not sticky anymore. So this is one of the reasons why I don't want to use this tape. Right, now I'm taking that same rubbing alcohol and I'm first cleaning my fingers. There's a little bit of oil that's on people's fingers, and now I'm just cleaning the surface again. Now I'm just cleaning the surface with the rubbing alcohol before I put the new tape on. Now I'm using this high quality double-sided tape, and I'm only opening the one side. I'll remove the backing a bit later. I'm just putting it on the lip here. This tape is a little bit narrower. I can assure you it's much stickier than the 3M tape. There I've gone a little bit skew, and look at this. It doesn't even want to let go. That's how sticky this tape is. And it is quite forgiving if you need to change your direction. If you're using the carbon fiber skirt, definitely don't want the tape coming out, because you will see the black coming through there, and that is why the tape is a little bit back, but not too far back, otherwise water and sediment can get in there. Alright, I'm over here ready to start. Now I don't want to start with this at that angle, so I'm going to let it have a little bit more and I'll just cut it when I'm ready. Just make sure that this is long enough for your bumper. I've already checked that, so I know that I can leave a little bit extra there. It's not a problem. Right, so I've opened up the tape. I'm leaving a little bit extra here, and there we go. So I've left this lip here because I'm actually going to cut it like that. Now I'm just following the bumper. Now you might want to use a ruler at this point to just determine how far out this is going to seat. So in this case I'm going with almost 2.5 centimeters. Right, so that's what it's looking like. Now I have to turn a corner, so at this point I'm going to make some incisions at the back, but I'm not going to make too many incisions because I still need a place to mount this onto the bumper, because I'm going to insert a screw or a panel pin over here. So I'm going to make incisions and it's going to look a little bit like that. So just a note, I open the top a bit wider so you can see that I'm cutting inwards so that when I turn the corner, these incisions can move closer together like that. When you're cutting, just be careful because this does cut very easily. So I cut a little bit and I support it. I don't want it to tear in two. Right, so there I'm making incisions as I'm turning this corner, and that allows me to bring this closer without this having a warp. Now every few inches or centimeters I go down, I am just doing a thickness test, and in this case it's about 2.5 centimeters. Just keeping in mind that the ruler does have that little bit of an edge there, so I can see that I'm 2.5. So I'm going to stick with about 2.5 centimeters, which is basically an inch. So I'm going to keep this an inch all the way. Now I can feel that there's a bit of tension here if I try and turn it, because you might notice that as I turn it, it's making this flap downwards, which I don't want. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut again. I'm going to cut a wedge. And that is allowing me to make the turn. And I'm going to cut again. So I want to share the bend over a wider area. So what I'm doing is I'm actually holding this upwards, because if I'm pulling it tight, it's going to end up sitting like this. I don't want it to sit like this. I want it to sit flared upwards. So that is why I'm supporting it as I take my turn. There we go. That's right. Okay, and I keep taking my measurement, 2.5, 2.5, 2.4, 2.4. Okay, it's going a little bit inwards there. Now I'm just re-cleaning my fingers and just re-cleaning this section. And I haven't done a very good job of getting rid of the old tape, but I'm still going to use some panel pins, so I don't really care. Right, so let's move on. So now what I need to do is I need to follow the bumper, but if I follow the bumper directly, this is what's going to happen, and I'm actually losing the skirt here, the lip, because it should be coming out towards here. So what I need to do is I need to decide in the middle what I want it to look like. So I'm taking the middle point over there, and based on that middle point, I can then work backwards. So I'll quickly check, is that 2.5? Yes, that's 2.5. So that's what I want it to look like over there. Then if I go in the reverse, I just need to see what I need to do in order to reverse it to look like that. Why I'm doing that is if I follow this exactly, I'll end up like that. And I don't want to, because then I'll go like that and I'll be stuck without any lip here. So I want to go there, align the tape is still closed, and follow the tape and see what it's going to look like, which means that over here it's going to be a little bit inwards and then come back out. And I'm happy with that, because if I try and go all the way out immediately, it's going to do that, and I don't want it to do that. So in order to stop this from happening, I'm going to do a gradual coming out. So it's going to be like that. And you'll see once I've done it that it'll look right. So as I said, this tape is quite forgiving. So I'm going to use the tape now and hold this a little bit loosely and actually let the tape stick there. It's fine. It's very good tape. Now what I can do is I can just, without sticking it here, I'm still working from this side to there, but I know where I'm going now. And now I can just go with a more of a relaxed bend here. Right, so now if I take my measurement there, still 2.5, and over here it's a bit less. Now it's gone to 2, but because the bumper does this curve, it's fine, because any moment now, yes, there it's 2.5 again. And then I can just maintain that 2.5 all the way now. But obviously this is personal preference, so it does depend on you in terms of what you want to do and what your bumper looks like. Now look at that, that's a mistake. And the reason why that has happened is because I was going in one plane and then I quickly tried to go a little bit more out. Then it does this. And this is why I say it's better to work from this side and then get your line and go casually, gradually. If you try and change direction too quickly, even on a mild bend like this, even though it's quite straight here, that's what happens. So I must just open this up and take a more milder or more gradual turn. So I go to the middle, and there's the middle, that's right. And now what I do is I take a more gradual turn. All right, so there you can see it has improved a bit, although it's still not perfect. I could open this again, and especially here, I could reform this so that that is a bit better. All right, so now you're seeing it from the reverse, and I'm going to attach it towards here. So in the same way as I did last time, but now in the reverse, I need to see where this is going to sit over here, and then I'm going to have to take a gradual turn. So it's going to be like that. Now I'm turning this corner, and in order to turn that corner, I'm going to have to do some incisions like I did on the other side. Right, I just do my ruler check, 2.5, that's right, and I can now turn this corner. I don't make it tight. If I make it tight, it's going to flare downwards. I just pull the cover of the tape off here, and I can run it to the end there. All right, so that's what it should look like. It's pretty straight, and I just need to cut. Right, so over here you need to make a choice. Are you going to cut it straight like that? So that I'm going to cut it straight so long, just to show you what I mean. Right, so that's straight. That means that this line here matches. So that's the side view, which keeps the same line, which looks good. The only problem is it is going to sag over time. Then the other problem is if you're looking at it from the front, it looks like it's now doing an arrow. Like it looks like an arrowhead, so you might want to cut it like that. So anyway, that's personal preference. Right, I'm just cutting it so that it's straight with this line. Right, now this is the side where I started, so I just need to cut that also straight with that line. Right, so I've cut that side. Now all I need to do now is put the screws or the panel pins, the push pins, along the travel of this skirt. Right, now what I'm doing is I'm drilling holes for these push pins. So I'm going to be using a lot of these push pins. Right, now what I do is I drill these push pins inside. So what I have to do is I measure the size of the push pin. In this case, it's a 6.1 millimeter. So I just need to drill with a 6 millimeter drill. And then I make sure there's no wires or PDC or anything underneath here, which I've already done. I'm clear to drill along the entire path. And then I push this in, and then it has a screw at the back, or yours might just be a push pin. Anyway, it doesn't matter, the concept is the same. Now you might also just want to use a screw and screw them in. I don't really like screws here because this thing does come out at times if you scrape a pavement, and then you've got a screw hanging out here, and that's also a possible puncture. So I prefer to use plastic when it's on the outside of the vehicle. So unfortunately I have to drill several times along the bumper's travel. Right, so there I made the first hole. Now unfortunately you actually have to drill this very close together. If I drill it over there, over time this is going to sag. Even with a good tape, it is going to sag, because what happens is someone might bump it or you catch it on a pavement, and then this thing pulls a bit, a little bit of dirt gets underneath there, and it slowly degrades it with the wind pressing this down all the time. So my recommendation is at least every 10 centimeters. You could even go closer in the parts, especially here in the front. So yes, this looks excessive, and this is what you need to do if you want this thing to last. Right, now a very important step is make sure you've massaged this all along the travel to make sure that that tape mates perfectly. Now I'm pressing these panel pins in one by one. I use some plastic screw pins, and then I also use push pins because I ran out of the screw pin. And this just gives you an idea of how many I put in, and yes, it's a lot. You can see I turned the corner here, and that's why I made those incisions. Make sure you have your screws or your panel pins here on the edge, on the corner. Then on my bumper, it does go up like that. So very important to have the push pins or your screws at this point. There's a lot of force sitting over here, especially when you're driving on the highway. Now, one of the reasons why this comes off the bumper is because the wind is pushing down here, and then maybe it catches on a pavement. Anyway, so the tape eventually separates, dirt gets in there, and then it just grows. So what you could do is put a bead of silicone here, all along here. Now, because this is black and this is black, I can do that. But if yours is the carbon fiber, you've got to be careful. So what I would do now is I would put a bead of silicone all along here to make it watertight, dirt tight, and then I'd leave it to dry for 24 hours and then it's done. In my case, because I've got so many push pins at the back, I'm not worried about that. I'm actually done now.